Hey, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion, a podcast that focuses on helping professionals communicate better, invest wisely, excel in their careers. And we've got a big emphasis on self-care. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please stay tuned. I'm Dr. Mo Anderson. And today we're continuing with our fascinating conversation with Lacy Bentley and her co-author, Heather Cronemiller, her co-author, collaborator, partner in crime. And we're going into part 2 of sex, love, and porn addiction. This has become a problem for so many women, and they are wondering what to do about it, feeling guilty. But we're going to chat some more about this today. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1. But these ladies say the answer is found in understanding your inner child. 2 authorities on the topic of addiction join me today to talk about how the inner child impacts your love, sex, and porn addiction. Welcome, Lacy and Heather.
Hi, Dr. Mo. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Thank you, Lacy. And Heather, you guys are just amazing. You alluded to some, but what are some other common emotional triggers that activate inner children related to addictive behaviors? It sounds like fear, insecurity is one. What are some others?
Well, there's I don't matter. I don't deserve love.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deserve safety. I'm a threat. I'm unsafe. I think Heather's actually better.
Okay. And those are things, as I'm hearing them, that don't just come to you naturally. It sounds like these are things that you might have been told by someone else or experiences you had, and you just can't let them go. Because most kids, like my grandkids, they came here just ever so confident and sure of themselves. And then as time goes by and they interact with different people, you see these, ideas or imposter syndrome type ideologies start to take place. What were you about to say, Heather? Oh, go ahead, Lacy.
You've probably heard them called faulty core beliefs too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I think Lacy hit the big ones. There's some overlap with all of these, and I think that Lacy got the overarching themes in a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is boredom, or just kind of like, I don't feel like I have purpose. That's one that's often overlooked. I think this is just my soapbox about addiction, is the boredom piece that causes a lot of acting out. We don't talk about it enough. I'm not allowed to have boundaries is another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You grow up in the enmeshed childhoods. I'm not allowed to have boundaries. So when somebody then oversteps your boundary, well, I'm not allowed to have those anyways. I'm only good to be used, right? I'm only good to be used as a sex object.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can't deal with this. It's another one.
Well, the being used, that's one of the female specific, the exploited child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. This is good stuff. And yes, we're going to talk about your book, and one way they can identify and connect with their inner children is obviously by reading, but it sounds like some professional help would be good as well. So my question is, how can women identify and connect with their inner children during the recovery process?
I think you hit on a very, very important point, is we are looking at trauma and neglect and some really big issues. And it's always advisable to have a therapist or a trained coach that can help walk you through it. So please don't try to do this at home, as they say.
Yeah.
I think that in the book, we have a couple different options to kind of meet the inner child.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of reflection, right? It takes a lot of looking at the childhood and what were the dynamics in the household. When were times where you felt really unsure of yourself? We look at when did you start looking at porn, right? What was going on in your life at that point? I have a meditation in there that I use frequently with clients where you meet the inner child, right? And it's very interesting to see how the inner child will appear to them, aside from a lot of this processing and stuff. So sometimes just doing a meditation where you are being walked through this process of meeting the younger version of you. The brain has a lot that comes up from the unconscious to the conscious while you start to work through some of these things. Another thing that I have people do sometimes is just look at pictures from your youth and see what comes up. So there's a lot of different strategies. You can journal about your youth. We have a workbook out too that has a ton of prompts that will help you start to connect with that inner child. So,
okay. In terms of getting professional help, I want to explore that a little bit because someone may very well be listening because they're at their wits' end and wanting help. And it's still, even though, every other hip hop song out there has some allusion to porn or sex or love or whatever, it's still, depending on the circle you're in, is not something you necessarily want everyone to know. So how can you find professional help? What do you, I know you said there's some things in the book, but is there a national hotline or a number or something we can also drop in the show notes for people?
That's what we need, Heather. We need a national hotline.
Yeah. So I am what's called a CSAT, a certified sex addiction therapist. And there's a directory on the website. It's called ITAP, IITAP dot, can't remember if it's org or com. I'll have to look that up. But you can go in there and search for people in your area that are certified. We have certifications for people to work with the addicts, the partners, and the coupleship. So you can find lots of different help on that website. That's probably the easiest place to go. Seeking Integrity. Lacy and I both do meetings on the Seeking Integrity site. That's a great place to start too. They've got a ton of free resources and drop-in meetings where anybody can come and meet other people and learn other things. That's sexandrelationshiphealing.com.
Okay. I'm guessing, like most things, I'm sorry to cut you off, that everything is confidential and, for someone concerned about that. Okay. And we'll drop those links, as well as a link to your, book as well. But this question just came to mind. It seems like a lot of times when spouses find out about this, assuming it's not infidelity or something, that they are not too happy. It could be a deal breaker for some people. So should people just go get therapy and not tell their spouse? And this may not be something you can tell us how to navigate, but is it, like tell them, but I'm going to get help, wait, or,
We're
both over here.
Don't do that. Don't do that. That's the worst thing you can do is just block.
Okay. So no, just blurt it out and say, hey, I just heard this podcast and I want to tell you something.
No, please
don't do that. Don't do that.
In the 12 step, they have making amends. That's step 8 and 9, right? But that, just blurting it out, that's called making a mess. And we don't want that.
And absolutely, and I can see that. But some people are everybody's so different. Some people would be like, I'm going to do this on my own and then try to share it later. And then other people are like, I'm just going to tell it. And so, we want this done in a healthy way that doesn't, while you're trying to get yourself together, doesn't screw up a relationship. Yes, Lacy.
And it is really important that everything eventually come out. But something called drip disclosure, that where like, here's a little bit of information. Here's a little bit. A week later, here's some more. That's called drip disclosure. And it's a really good way to give your partner PTSD. But getting to a place where you can say, hey, a lot has happened. I want to share it with you. You need to share everything. And having a CSAT, a well-trained therapist, is really critical. And you want everything out, or you can never answer the question, but would they stay if they knew? You need to be able to answer that question, and they need to have all of the information. It just needs to be handled sensitively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have any examples? And obviously we want to, not go break any HIPAA violations or anything, but do you have any examples from your practices or experiences of someone who came in with one of these types of addictions and was able to recover?
Yeah, tons.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're willing to,
yeah.
If you're
just
willing
a generic type of how it went about.
Yeah. So I can share a little bit of my story, actually, because Lacy was my coach. That's how we met.
I love it. I did not know that.
I also love
about this stuff. This is great. This is great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So I fall under the umbrella of love addiction. I struggled with that for quite some time. It was a lot of fantasy, a couple of emotional affairs. And after years, I got fed up. My husband got fed up. I didn't know about disclosure, which is like this formalized process that you should be going through with a therapist. So I did the whole, this is what's going on. And so don't do that. Let me just throw that out there. But eventually it got to be to the point where I was not showing up for my family. I was not showing up for my marriage. It was all I ever thought about, a lot of the stuff that Lacy described. So hired her, did the work. I was part of a great community of women. I was checking in with people frequently. I read all the books, and that was 2018, I think. And now I'm doing this. I'm lucky enough to be able to support other women in their journey. So it can happen. It can happen.
And certified. That is amazing. Congratulations. So I'm hearing, support, patient with yourself, and getting professional help and getting educated about it, because we can really, really harm ourselves by staying in our own head and thinking we know everything about everything. Yeah, Lacy.
And a community is really important too. That's one thing that I harp on with my clients is you need a community. So I create a community where they can be together with text groups and meetings, and having that community of women that, because we just are really not that good at relationships, period. When we're dealing with these kinds of addictions, and some people consider them attachment disorders. That's how I see them. We're not really good at relationships anyway, but when we learn to have good, healthy, connected, reciprocal relationships with other women, all of a sudden, we kind of just don't need the addiction anymore. Almost magical.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing to have healthy, supportive relationships. I definitely rely on my tribe. So, tell us about the book, what readers can expect, kind of how it's laid out, what's the flow of it, and a little bit more about your wonderful, wonderful book and the title as well.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. Honestly, I feel like this model that Eddie has developed is absolutely inspired. In the book, the first couple of chapters are actually skills and tools to help you learn to self-regulate. We talk about attachment disorders and what those might look like. Heather wrote an amazing chapter on mindfulness. So we give you the skills and tools first so that you know how to regulate, because hold on, we're about to trigger everything inside of you, which is also why I don't do this alone at home. And then basic rundown of the 10 little girls. There's 10. And then we go into a chapter, an extensive deep dive into what each of these girls looks like and what they like, where their pain came from, what growing up probably looked like for them, what it looks like when they start to come into recovery, what their acting out and addictive behaviors most likely look like. And then we get into the faulty core beliefs or core emotional triggers that I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy.
Mm-hmm.
The women are creating a list of these that they then will divide into buckets. If they get the workbook, Eddie has a chapter teaching them how to do that.
Right.
And then it's about, now what do you do to heal? And inside of each chapter, there are specific ideas for each particular little girl that might work especially well for women who deal with that inner child.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the book, and especially in the workbook, there's lots of tools for regulating and addressing your little girl, coming to terms with her, learning to talk to her. In every chapter, there's something called Kid Talk, which is you need to learn how to talk to this young part of yourself in a way that's nurturing so that you can help to mature her, connect with her, help her to see that you've got this, you can handle it. You're not in danger anymore.
Very good. Very good. Yes, Heather, parting words.
I just wanted to clear up something really quick that I think is important to the book. We have these general inner child types, right?
Right.
But oftentimes we as people have multiple different types of inner children that combine to make our inner child. So going back to the little Heather example, little Heather might have a combination of the stressed child and the need for control child and the enmeshed child, right? All of those kind of come together to create Heather. So that's kind of how that model works as far as figuring out little so-and-so.
Understood. Interesting. And as I'm reading the book, I just kind of went through and I didn't have time to read the whole thing before I interviewed, but I picked out certain inner child that, it just appealed to me and resonated with me. And I found things within myself, and I don't have any of these addictions, but, that manifest in other ways as I was reading. And I was like, oh, that's why I feel like that, So I'm saying that to readers, pick up a copy because I think this can be relevant. Even if you're not to the point of addiction, we've all got a little inner child in us that's probably hurt and needs to be addressed. And this book can help you with that as well. And also, especially folks who are dealing with this type of addiction, I think this is a very good first step if you're trying to figure out what to do. Keep the book in your car or whatever at the office, download it, keep it on your phone. But a good first step for healing and recovery. Any last words or thoughts or advice before we go, ladies?
Yeah, I have something that's really important is for women to know that it's okay to try out a whole bunch of different groups and to need a group where there are other people who love like they do, or who look like they do, or who live the way they do. It's okay. And it can be so helpful to find a community of women where there are other women you have things in common with that are really important to you.
Okay.
You don't have to just because this is the first meeting you went to, you don't have to stay there. Keep looking until you find the community you really need.
Love that. I love that. Heather?
Ask for help. That's the hardest part, I think, is get started, but it's worth it. It's worth the work. You're worth the work.
Yeah, it's not going to be admit there's a problem. That. But the next step is stop hiding it and ask for help. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your work, your book with us today. If one of you will tell the listeners how to connect with you online or both, how to connect with you online, but one of you how to purchase the book as well.
Yeah, so we have the book out on Amazon, Going Deeper for Women, and then the Going Deeper for Women workbook. So that's where you can buy it. My website is cronemillercounseling.com. Cronemiller is spelled CRONEMILLER, counseling.com.
And you can reach me by going to lacybentley.com. Lacy is Lacy. There's no E in my first name. But yeah, you can go to my website to get a hold of me.
Very good. And again, all of that will be in the show notes, as well as a link to Eddie's work as well, if people want a companion piece. But I'm really, really excited about what you're doing and proud of you for addressing this very important topic and making it specific for women. So thank you.
Thank you for having us on.
And thank you, listeners, for your time and support of this indie business. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more like this. Please visit my website at drmoanderson.com to book me as a speaker or speaker coach. Subscribe to my newsletter and learn more about my books. Until next time, be safe and be well. Thank you. And wasn't that a great program? Oh, love that episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Learn more about me on my website, drmoanderson.com. That's MOE. You can read book excerpts, watch videos, learn about my services that I offer, and book me for a speaking engagement. I'd love to talk with your group, and I'd love to work with you. So until the next time, review, renew, and renew. Thank you.